All right.
Oh, I love the background.
Here we go. It's a gazebo from some wonderful location. I got the complete lumberjack. Cleveland long ago had a hockey team apparently before I got in town. And at one point, a friend gave it to me. And it's perfect for this holiday season, all red and green and et cetera.
Yeah, I kind of remember the Lumberjacks. It sounds familiar. We got the Monsters, so
I think, from what I understand, like many big cities, Cleveland has had soccer teams, hockey teams of lesser leagues and stuff like that, and they survive 1, 2, 3 seasons, and they don't seem to have put together enough ticket money. The rent goes up, whatever it might be. That even though Cleveland is a big sports town, there sure is a lot of hunger for it, but we don't. That I don't know. The Monsters have been around for a long time now. I've
yeah.
actually been to a Monsters game and had a really nice time. I had a friend Larry who actually had like a whole sheet of here's all the various different cheers and how to respond because there really had become a whole bunch of regulars that had put together all these fun ways to slander the other team and stuff like
We
that. So
we went a couple times with Girl Scouts and Cub Scouts, and actually the Girl Scouts got to walk on center ice holding the flag for everybody to stand up and sing the national anthem.
see, that's
Uh,
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my daughter got into it. They had little stations set up because it was a whole bunch of scouts. So they had
Okay.
stations set up and they went and made big poster signs and she's just shouting and ooh, cheering. And I'm like, hey,
Like,
Megan, what's the score? She goes, I have no idea.
exactly. Yeah, this is the fun stuff.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
What we've talked about before. I love AAA. You know what I mean? When we go to the Rubber Ducks game, it's so different. As much as we had reasonable sports teams in Cleveland over there, and I used to go to the Cubs all the time, even though they didn't make it into the World Series for 100 years. And yet, I don't know, small town or minor league stuff is just so much more fun. It's
It
not only
is.
the prices of things that are ridiculous, that the kids get to go out on the field, they get to go out on the ice. They the mascot is goofy. You know what I mean? It's not all like corporate, not just sponsored, but controlled. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I really have had fun at those games. And that's what I seek out nowadays. I don't really go to Guardians games. I go to the Lake County, the Crushers or the Captains or the other ones that we have, the Rubber Ducks.
Yep. That's down here. Yep.
All right. So
So how you
Christmas is
doing?
on us, man. So yeah, cat's out of the bag. Might as well talk about it. My mom passed away earlier in the week. She's had Alzheimer's for years. And my father passed away almost 2 years ago now. And we've had her in a memory care facility where I would regularly go visit and so forth. But she wasn't getting any better. And you could see straight out of like any geek, how do I get out of worry and fear? You go read a lot of books and read a lot of websites and stuff, and you kind of learn what's happening and how it's going to continue. And so nothing has been a surprise. She really was almost a textbook in terms of the memory going, being able to recognize me, and then maybe not being able to retain even the same time that we would talk, what we had talked about in conversation. So I was, I don't know, I love her. I was always trying to showing her some photos and knowing that she might not be retaining anything, but I hope that she recognizes family and that if anything, she sees the delight in my voice. And so that was often enough. These last few days was a quick decline. Last week, either Thursday or Friday, I went over and visited, and she was sleepy, so sleepy that I really couldn't get her to make eye contact with me. She was pretty much in a not a daze, but just dozing off, and even my voice and my touch and stuff wouldn't rouse her. And when I mentioned that, then what we have done is we had hospice care for her, not in a hospice, but in this same place, Arden Courts, which hats off to them. They have been wonderful and sweet and professional, and just I couldn't have found a better place. Um, and as she went then into hospice and had the hospital bed and was having difficulty breathing, and they gave her a little bit of morphine because that doesn't just calm you, it actually helps with some of those autonomic things that your body starts forgetting, and it starts forgetting everything. You know what I mean? Like how to
Yeah.
swallow, how to breathe. And in the course of probably the last 4 days, she really went from being in the cool new wheelchair that we had gotten for her that really supported her well to kind of being in the bed to kind of being nobody was home in the eyes at a certain
Right.
point. She was just roomy, and I was there every day. But when I went home on Sunday night, going on Monday morning, I hadn't really done vigil. I hadn't been there solidly, but I kept visiting and for long periods of time. That day I was there from 11 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. And when I went home to get a little bit of sleep and a quick shower, she passed. And people have been very kind in terms of everybody. And I mentioned it because I have been kind of sharing the saga. I really think part of the way you get through pain is to well, what does Spider Robinson say? Pain shared is pain halved, and joy shared is joy doubled. And so I figured that's kind of how I live my life. A number of people said that subconsciously, people kind of know that they're fading and that people are around them, and they don't want to break the heart of their loved ones. So they kind of wait until it's really quiet and that they get to make their peace. And she just kind of went to sleep and didn't wake back up. So she looked fragile. I never really, I've seen dead bodies, of course, at funerals and stuff like that. But within the time between her passing and the, we had, boy, a lot of things came together where we knew about the hospice care. We had gone to a place called the Neptune Society. That is, my parents both wanted to be cremated and their ashes scattered in the Pacific so they could swim with the fishes forever. And so all that was arranged and came together. And then once it really happened, it was just a question of making the right calls, getting the right person to come over and certify yes death. So that goes on the death certificate. The Neptune Society came and picked her up. Jeremy, Rajiv was really good when she came from the hospice about what to expect. And then after it happened, here's what happens next. Everybody was just very calm and solicitous and with you. You know what I mean? It wasn't at all brusque. It wasn't just another chart to them. It sure, or at least they found people to be in these roles that were really decent. And so got her picked up, got to wheel out with Jeremy in the last final touch before she went, the special gurney that collapses in the front. So it goes right into the medical thing. And even by the time we got her out of her room, she had started to cool, which, like, I'm not trying to be ghoulish, but it's just everything is so real and so final that it's just, even if you expect it, it's still, oh man, this is really.
But I love what you said, that you got together with your siblings, you went out to breakfast, and to remember the good stuff. And my son and I talked about that. It's like my great grandmother, I don't have any really good memories of her other than her being upset, crying. For 25 years, she lived past her husband. And as far as she was concerned, her life stopped. When he died, that was it. The old school, she came to America when she was like 20, 21 years old. And when I say old country, they started them. Exactly. But so her life kind of stopped. So there was never any good memories with her other than she made pasta and New Year's Day. She was never really happy, never really, not a whole lot of conversation. So I don't have any great memories.
Yeah. By the way, I've done a huge disservice. When I mentioned to my brothers, I always keep them up to date as to what's going on. My younger brother, upon hearing, hey, I think it's really happening, he and Bruce and Chris, drove up 6-7 hours from Bloomington overnight to be there. And Colleen came over. So it wasn't just me. My family really came together. My older brother was not able to come up, but he took care of, as I was giving him, here, we got to get the crematorium paper signed. DocuSign goes. All the hospice, everything. He has been a rock as the conservator. He really has a ton of stuff to take care of, but everything has gotten taken care of. There was no, I don't know, signing a contract under not the best frame of mind and stuff. So everybody, we shared some wonderful stories then at breakfast. You know what I mean? We really did reminisce about, of course, with Christmas coming up, remember this Christmas and how fun this was. And that when my parents first got a reliable car, that's when we started to take weekend trips, or at least a Sunday long day trip. And so much of that is I got the Wanderlust from them. They really showed me the world is big and you got to go explore it. So from Chicago, we went to White Pines and Starved Rock and up to the House on the Rock and Mississippi Palisades. Just kind of, you could see a spiral going outwards over to the sand dunes and all these things. Boy, they're like a couple hours away, but a whole different world. You go to the sand dunes. What are sand dunes doing? Oh, of course, Lake Michigan is big enough to actually have the conditions that create sand dunes instead of only the Sahara or something like that. So it was, when we say goodbye come spring, it really will be, I hope, a celebration of life. It isn't, oh God, they're gone and we're so sad. It's also, they had a great life. were 90 years, 60 plus years of that together. They got out, they survived World War II, came over here, had the American dream. They lived in paradise. They had a house 3 miles from the ocean between San Diego and LA, and would walk on the beach and go give food to the pelican. They traveled the world. They went to Morocco. They went to through the Panama Canal, all over the place. And so much, if I can be as good a man as my father, if I can be as loving as my mom, I will have been a good person, because they really were great parents. My best friend, Stu, and I, growing up, we often talked about we hit the parental lottery. Our parents stayed together. Nobody was an alcoholic. Nobody was a philanderer. It was just such a good household. And we both have multiple siblings, and the parents treated us all very fairly. All of it. I can never thank them enough. In the memories of them, you realize just not everybody had it as well. Colleen came from a big family, but her parents weren't always of quality. And sorry to have this be a recorded thing, but it's not like only she knows. The whole family knows that they grew up under difficult circumstances. And a lot of what they do when they have these discussions is kind of like process trauma, not celebrate. And not only that, of course, the family had wonderful times as well, but you know how it is, it's a scale. And the fact that I have 90% good memories, that ain't the case for somebody. So for everybody who's coming into the holidays, for everybody who had difficult interactions with, you name it, their parents, their grandparents, their siblings, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's, and that every new year is a chance to just, I don't know, reapply yourself to, I'm grown up and I can handle this. I don't have to only be the reaction that I had when I was 5 and I didn't know what was happening in the world. People have stuff, all kinds of things from when they were young, that they have little autopilot responses. And I hope, Al Baltus, amateur psychologist, I hope that you're able to just say, I'm choosing different. In the moment of choice, you really get to say, I'm not going to be haunted by that anymore. I'm going to make the effort. You know what I mean? And maybe you'll just get lucky and say, hey, that memory that's been with me for all these years, memories fade. Finally, I had a good Christmas. Now my Christmases can be good, that kind of thing. So
yeah, enjoy the time. Don't spend more of your life being upset that they're gone. Enjoy it while you have it. Enjoy it while you're there. I think at my father's funeral, I think actually a few people got upset with me because I wasn't just walking around crying and upset. I was seeing people I hadn't seen in years. And we talked and had stories about my dad. In fact, I got up and said, okay, anybody have any stories about my dad? Let me tell you one. And I told one, and some people chuckled, but other people were like, you can't. Yeah, it's a funeral. You're supposed to be upset. And it's, I just don't, I've never felt that way.
I have been to funerals where it is a relatively somber, stately affair, but almost everybody has kids. They bring their kids. And when the kids, like, they don't have the awareness of what's going on, they don't have the attention span and the calmness. So they start running around and having a good time, even in a funeral parlor or even in a church. And of course, they quickly get kind of calmed down because you don't want them knocking over the casket or anything. But there's still something to be said for, hey, circle of life. Yeah. This is, these kids, it isn't only sad to them. This is a chance to get together with their friends and family. This is a chance to, as much as mom and dad might be sad, hey, we get to go out to lunch. You know what I mean?
And this year, I hit 2 milestones myself. I had a buddy. We went same age, same grade. He had a full hip replacement. I'm like, check that off. There's my first peer with a full hip. And then I had another friend, his mother, I grew up with him. I hadn't seen him in a while. He stopped over, actually brought me some of his old Star Wars toys, and we chatted for a while. But his mother is now in a nursing home. And I'm like, there we go. My first year with parent in a nursing home. So it doesn't stop moving. And I just think let me veer a little bit and tell you a story.
Of course.
When my grandmother died, she and I never got along great. We butted heads quite a lot. And I tried to be a little somber for the funeral for my mother and stuff like that. But my cousin's grandson was there, and he was 2 or 3, little kid. He had no clue or whatever. He's kind of walking around. So we're at the funeral home. We are the only funeral home going on, but they have the different rooms, but they have those elastic walls that move around so you can make the size. So we were walled off in one area, and there was another room open, but there was nothing going on in there. Nobody was in there. My cousin's grandson's walking around, and he turns and he looks into that room and he smiles and waves and laughed and walked away. And we're all like, okay, what is he seeing that we are not?
Wow.
Yeah. Again, and we've had this discussion about supernatural and what you can see or believe. And I would totally be on board with, yeah, he saw somebody that we can't see. There have been so many stories of people that reports like this with little kids that they can see stuff we can't around the world, that it like filters out as your brain changes or something. So
Okay.
I totally believe whatever he saw, somebody. Little kids don't wave at empty rooms and laugh.
Exactly. Nothing spooky happened. No, there was, in fact, this is kind of weird. I'm kind of glad that I wasn't here the death rattle. Now, people have said
Right.
that really is that last breath can be difficult.
Because then it sticks with you and that's all you remember.
That's right. I actually did take a picture of mom in repose. And I think I've mentioned before, she had a tuxedo cat, a plush toy that she just had with her all the time. And we sent it along to be cremated with her because it really was like her in repose holding her little kitty cat was just the way to remember my mom. You know what I mean? That the real Monty and Monty too, she spoiled them rotten. She loved these cats. And the first one was really wonderful and cuddly. The second one, not so much, but she kept treating him like a good kitty cat. And eventually I think she broke him down. He did climb in the lap and purr and stuff like that. But it that's, like I said, how I want to think of my mom is cuddly. And I think I mentioned this maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago. The last thing, as she became less verbal, the last thing she said to me that was quite very clear was I took her hand and she said, nice and warm. Well, if that's what I think my mom thought of me, nice and warm, I'll take that. That's
Perfect,
really,
man.
oh,
Perfect.
perfect. Exactly that. So because we had too many things planned and everything just proceeded, and because there's so many things to get done with the holiday, sometimes that's how you get through tough stuff is work on something else. Don't just sit there
Yeah.
staring into the darkness. And so I've been working on the last of the gifts and the Christmas cards and that kind of stuff. And in fact, just got the Christmas cards out yesterday. Today, the PDF goes out for those who are digital. You know what I mean? We got a big old database / spreadsheet of the hundreds of people that we send things out because it's the one opportunity a year. Something should be winging its way to your house.
Cool.
I don't know if it's going to get there before Christmas. It was one of those things where they gave a date range and it was before and after. So here's hoping that you get out something under your tree. But
Well,
sometimes when you and I buy each other particular things, it's not like they stocked up on the latest Taylor Swift album and they could just shuffle one out of a million out. We have particular things and they're like back in the warehouse.
yeah, I do have something for you coming, and it's been coming actually for weeks. And it's very only Al. You're like the only person I know that this is for, and you'll understand. Cool. And I think you'll appreciate it immensely. And that's what's really, I spent so long with my kids, and this was very difficult with Gina and her kids. They did not, but I spent so long with my kids that you want to give people something, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, look, I spent $100. It could be something you made or pennies or whatever, but it's something very custom and personal. My son has been nailing it for the last couple years. He got me, I think I mentioned, my very first Star Wars figure was Han Solo on Hoth, and Colin found the gun, the little gun. So he got that. And for this year, I didn't get it. I'll have to get it for the next episode. For my birthday this year, he got me A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but it was, I'll have to show you. I should have brought it. It's a little square about 2 by 2, and it's the complete story, but it was from 1920. It was a series of books they started to print in this little format because it was, now printing became cheaper and people before never had these books. So they printed it in a way that people could afford to get the books. And it's leather bound, and it comes with a little card because they couldn't print on the cover. So it comes with a card describing what it is, and it's in a slipcase, and it actually has stamps on it from 1923. Somebody mailed it to somebody, and it's the coolest gift.
Yeah. It's that, so good for him for just that. The fact that those artifacts are out there. I know the world is going digital, but there's some pretty cool atoms out there too. And to see the generations of different books and of, I don't know, if any number of, like, we still have a VCR player, you know what I mean? If something that never got issued on DVD, somebody found the VCR, it'd be like, well, that's pretty cool. That really is like the original cover, the
Well,
original, what do they call the movie? The placard, or there's a particular name
right.
for it. Flash thing that you see up at the theater. I love finding those kinds, especially when you find it in good condition. Like, this thing survived 60 years. It was in somebody's closet. It was kept, not just, oh no, the rain got it. That kind
Right.
of thing. So
I may have to employ your services. We do have a VHS of this really rare Teenage Mutant Turtle thing, and Colin wants to transfer it, but our VCR is the head doesn't display anymore. So
okay.
I may employ you sometime. It's 30 minutes long.
When I left Topica, my .com, this is now 20 plus years ago, we had the ability to pick a gift off of a list, if you will. And what I got was a dual DVD, maybe only a CD-ROM, a dual player where it's VHS on one. And so that's exactly for that kind of transferring from one media to the other. Haven't run it for 30 years. So for all I know, the heads are trashed, demagnetized, gum got in there, whatever. But if there's anything that I can do to try to, I think I mentioned long ago, I was one on, when I was LOCSEC, local secretary for Chicago area Mensa, we had an opportunity to be on Fox Thing in the morning to review movies that I thought would be fun for a Mensan to do. And it was like the Einstein movie, it was Spice Girls, that Spice World, that kind of stuff. But reason for saying that is lost my train of thought. The I have tapes of those things that somebody captured off of TV, and I know that those things aren't going to last forever. That's not archive quality media. That's a VHS was often just the lowest common denominator. So the fact that I've let it sit for this long and haven't moved it over, I hope that now it's not impossible to do.
Yeah.
I once went to a very cool lecture in California. Hewlett and Packard created, obviously, that company. And if I remember, David Packard, when he semi-retired and had money to do things, he either started or was a principal in the California Film Archives. And they were the guys that specialized in when they found old films like on nitrate, or where it really was, it hadn't been kept in the best of conditions. So if they're going to be able to capture this original print, they got to take it into clean room conditions, temperature and humidity controlled, and frame by frame, make sure that you peel it off so that it's not lost to history. And while I was out doing my .com things, I went and saw they had recovered a print of Rafifi. It's a caper movie that was made in Europe, and it's very famous for, there's a 20 minutes of the film is quiet because they're next to the bank and they have to be moving totally quietly so that nobody suspects they're there. And so it gets just tenser and tenser. And then a guy, spoiler alert, drops like a wrench, and it sounds like a cannon, a volcano going off, because you've just been leaning in, and oh my God, this is so tense. And the reason I mentioned that is because that was the first movie my parents went to see together.
Nice.
They went to see, and there's a famous theme song, or at least a song within the movie that's very Italian stereotype, maybe French stereotype, I'm sorry. And so when they mentioned that was the first movie, then I saw that they were hosting this showing. It was like, I gotta be there. Right. This is like the film they saw. It's that print, that year. It's not a remake. It's not any. It really is. That can might have been in the theater in Europe, and then whatever. It was very cool.
That's very cool. And you talk about the restoration of this old stuff. I've heard some rumbling. Doctor Who has been on forever. Everybody listening should probably know that. And at the time, the earliest ones that they recorded, they got done, they tossed, got rid of them.
Or so they actually recorded over them with something else. So they really are lost. It's not like you can find that tape or something like that. Anyway, yeah.
So there was, back 20-ish years ago, 15, 20, whatever, a group of people was doing reconstructions of those episodes where because they still had photos from the set. And they had the audio, which is a little weird at times, whatever. So they reconstructed it kind of like a slideshow with subtitles and audio. But I've heard rumblings now that they're like, we could take those photos and with AI, we can recreate the video. And
the tweeting, as they call it, go from one thing to the other and look like it was originally filmed. That's cool.
And with all the technology, I talked about this, you could do the 4th season of Star Trek and AI create the actors, have their lips move with their voices and create all new dialogue, all this AI stuff.
Right.
That's something you could do.
Take all the books that Blish and others did as continuations of the series and use those as the scripts, the
Right.
inspiration, and you really could do. And there's a lot of morality involved there. I really don't want it to be that someone's likeness gets used without their permission, if you will, even no matter how much the rabid fans would love to see that. But there's got to be a way to find the happy middle path. You know what I mean? That they can Shatner and
Well,
whoever else and de-age them. That it looks like the original cast. Bones should be there, etc.
I mean, and the contracts now obviously are changing, but back then it was like, yeah, you're an actor, you paid, you did your job, we own it all. And they could do whatever. Right. So from the actor and producer and creative team standpoint, great. Now they redid the episode, but arguably they're redoing the episode. They're not using what you did film, though that some of the voice, and that's a whole morality, like you said, morality discussion. But and I know this isn't going to happen. The corporate bigwigs could say, hey, your estate still exists. Here's some money or whatever, because we put this out and people loved it. I know that won't happen, but
it's a good thing to be able to talk about the comic book field in that they really have, in a lot of cases, made right by people. Frank Miller and maybe, I'm trying to think, Neil Gaiman, Matt Wagner, a couple of people that did early on their own work and licensed it to the company instead of it being work for hire. Well, then they also went and said, oh, there's no way that Jack Kirby's widow should be living difficultly when he created the Marvel universe. There should be something. And so with a kind of moral pressure, more than legal things, it really was done as work for hire. They managed to get it so that the estates of Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman. Each of the various different things. Moulton created Wonder Woman. I think they've made it that even though the companies were not obligated to do so, they've made sure that the people, who in some cases the people were still around, but they were like living in a retirement home, and they said, well, here, how's about $20,000 a life? How about $100,000? Whatever it might be, that they've made, as you well know, billions off of the cinematic universe. And so maybe that's also what helps them make them a little bit generous, is there's money to go around. Back when it was still only comic books, it wasn't a great way to make money. Only certain things that really had to be a hit, but most comic books were what, 200,000 copies, repeat. It wasn't. So just that, hats off to not only the people that pushed for it, but the good guys at Marvel and DC. Jeanette Kahn, I'm trying to think of who were some of the names I remember when all that stuff was still coming out. The Comic Book Legal Defense Fund was involved, but not like as a protagonist. They were like saying, the way to do this legally is like this. It's given as a bequest or whatever the appropriate legal term is, so that it doesn't create further obligation on the part of the companies, but they really do get to share the wealth.
And it was like not till the third or fourth Superman movie that they recognized the creators. And because I read something about they went and saw it in the theater with everybody. It was the first time they saw that.
To see Siegel and Schuster that up on this. Yes, that's got to be amazingly satisfying to be like, if you're Arthur Conan Doyle and you finally get to see that Sherlock Holmes has become one of the most recognizable figures ever. He lived long enough to really do that. But Siegel and Schuster did. Did you read this? By silhouette, some of the most recognizable characters is Superman with the akimbo pose, Mickey Mouse because of the ears, and Sherlock Holmes with this deerstalker cap. All that to create something for the ages like that, the contribution you've made to the world, fantastic.
Yeah. And so on Prime, you may not have seen this, there is a mini young whatever Batman special, Christmas special, but it's the I forget which it is. It's not the movies or anything, but it's young. It's Batman, but it's a Damien that it focuses on when he's like 8.
Okay, who is his son that he didn't know he had by Ra's al Ghul's dog.
It reminded me a little bit of Mad Magazine, a little bit of Ren and Stimpy. So it's funny
because it's got that the style of the artwork is campy, goofy, cartoony instead of being meant to be like dark, like the comic books.
This is made for.
I did see it. I just so many things now. I'm suffering from back when we actually used a DVD recorder to capture things. Oftentimes I filled up my 100 hours, my 200 hours, and I'd be like, all right, watch a whole bunch of comedy half-hour specials just so I can delete and make some room. You know what I mean? And exactly this period between Christmas and New Year's, I'd use that if there's any way in which I have binged, it was kind of driven by that of the, this is going to go away or I don't have any room to save anything else, I have to make room.
Yes.
So,
You mentioned the recognition. So in the cartoon, there's like a cane and finger boulevard or something like that they go
that's
past.
cool.
And then one of the original artists they put into the cartoon just as a cameo, something. They didn't name him. They didn't. He had one line that Damien went past him, whatever. And Colin goes, "Hey, that's so and so."
Stan Lee kind of took on that Hitchcockian aspect of. I think that he was in every single Marvel movie until he passed, and I think they even had one come out after he passed that he had done some work on, and
Right.
they kept him
Right.
in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's a very, he really was the goodwill ambassador for Marvel for the last 3 decades of his life, maybe even 4. He really was no longer producing the comic books, but still had that the patter when you could have him at a Comic-Con and putting him in the movie and having he had the great ability to make fun of himself.
He became like the fictional mascot almost.
And in fact, at one point, there's all kinds of fan theories about this. At one point, we're like, oh, I think he's the Watcher. That's why he's in all these scenes, because Stan's name is not Stan. It's really like Uatu, like all the Watchers have those multi-vowel names. And I just, that tickles me. I'm going to go with that. I think Stan.
What wasn't it at the end of the Guardians movie that he was sitting there talking to the Watchers and telling them,
giving him the status report, that kind of thing. So I love that. The Aquaman movie opens tonight.
Oh, is that tonight?
Probably going to go see it. Maybe I made a mistake. I didn't get tickets yet because we really weren't sure how everything was going to play out timing wise with all of this. But that would be, if you're looking to get lost in a fantasy for a while, how about Undersea Kingdoms, warring mermen? And as much as I like this stuff, Colleen mentioned Jason Momoa would be okay to see. That would be
just saying.
Exactly. If you want to drag me along to another comic book movie, it would be okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah, the upcoming shows and movies is a little bit of a dry spell. Not a whole lot coming out for a while on this ground.
I've been watching, I don't know, less comic book stuff, but we just watched The Last Rookie just last night. And as you mentioned, there's a lot going on. And at first I wasn't sure if it was the cliffhanger or if there was one still to go, but just whatever happened to have, again, spoiler alert, but it's to have them be targeted and to still have a mystery villain. And it wasn't the female serial killer. It wasn't the other mastermind. Just, okay, what's really going on? And really, maybe death of another main character, maybe. And it's intense as hell. It was really
so. What'd you think of the whole Rosalind thing when she got killed and all that, and what she was doing? That was crazy.
So it's kind of funny. They really, instead of it being like for an evil genius, a mad genius, to be driven by, I have to take over the world, I have to make a ton of money, she just was like a sadist and liked getting into people's heads and seeing how much she could screw up their lives, which is dangerous as hell if you're going to be like in public and can't necessarily shield yourself from her. She had that evil charisma that some people can have, where people that won't commit crimes just as their own thing, they'll be happy to be a minion. If you ever wonder where the henchmen come from, it's because some people really want the permission of doing bad things because, hey, someone told me, they forced me to do it. So as we see in real life all nowadays, whoops, did I say that? Anyway, so
unfortunately, the actress passed away before that even came out. So,
oh man,
you didn't know that, Annie Wershing? Yeah.
Don't they? Sometimes they have maybe. Oh, I didn't know her actress name. If they had a little in memoriam,
they did.
That really was. Oh my God. Okay.
So yeah, she actually had cancer and filmed those while battling cancer, and she passed away before that episode came out.
Okay.
So it was, I think, the last thing she did. I always liked her. She was in 24. She was in The Runaways. Okay. Couple other things that I've watched through the years.
That's where I know her from, The Runaways. I never watched 24, but it's she has the perfect bone structure, and so I know I've seen that face before. And actually, I think we mentioned that they had one guy that was on the show, and he kind of said, "I'm not going to do the show anymore because of disagreements with how they were portraying not his character necessarily, but the Black Lives Matter stuff about how they really weren't getting equal treatment, equal time, etc." And I can understand what he was saying. Even though it's a big ensemble cast, some people are more the main characters and some are the secondary. From what I understand, he said, "I'm not coming back," but they already had figured him into a plot. So he's the guy that gets shot and put in the trunk, and not in a disrespectful way. It wasn't, well, just get rid of this character then. They really, it was agonizing to see him go away, but it really wasn't him in the film, right? It wasn't him getting filmed. They found another body.
It was very abrupt and shocking.
Yeah.
I could see that. Now, that actor was in an episode of Castle. So we talk about Philly and bringing people over. It's actually one of the Christmas
we've seen Lainey, we've
episodes.
seen everybody has made an appearance at some time or another. And not the mom. His other, the mom that he has in the new one was first the redhead was like, no, she's not sweet but ditzy. She's actually pretty evil.
Yeah. Man, what else? Underwater Kingdom tonight. My poor mother, here it is, week before Christmas, and her car died. So she's out looking for a new car, and she's horrible with looking for new vehicles and all that. And it's one of those things. It's like
family defense. You want to go with her and let her get
I do, but I know we would just probably end up at each other's throats a little bit, because her first thing, she's talking to the guy, he tells her, her whole subframe rusted out. And they said, well, we might be able to fix it. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to fix the frame of the car? She goes, oh, okay, well, I want to come and look for something. And she said, I have this much to put down, and that my top that I can afford is this much per month, but I'll come and look. And then I'm like, just tell them that.
Your negotiation strategy is surrender.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, and plus I'm trying to, it drives me crazy, because I'm like, you're 75. Do you really want a new car with payments? I'm like, make it something used for yourself, because then I've got something, and you could even use my car. She's like, oh, I don't want to use your car. It scares me. I'm like, oh my God, I've got insurance. It's a car. It's fine. And I'm just like, okay, maybe we get something and kind of go together, and then I'll just get a second used car, because you don't need a payment. You don't need a new car. You drive barely ever.
Right.
So
I'll tell you, I wish that people did this. Consumer Reports for a long time, any number of other finance books will say the best thing you can do is not put a lot of money into an immediately depreciating asset. You drive that car off the lot and it's $5,000 less than what it was. So what they say is find a car that's going to last 100, 150,000 miles, buy it with 30. You don't get a new car, but you get all the value of that car for a third of the price that you would have paid if you insisted on, I want the new car smell. And so we have not done that, because Colleen worked for a place that they actually had a program where your car gets taken care of because you're using it for business all the time. You depreciate the car, and they kind of paid for that depreciation. So both of our Priuses were bought new, but now we don't have any car payment. They've lasted to 4 years and stuff. If ever we don't get it, if one of these guys runs out and we don't need a second car, if we do need a second car, we're going to be like, am I really going to finally do the right thing and look in the ads and go to Carvana and say, give me another Prius with 15, 30,000 miles on it, as long as it doesn't stink of cigarette smoke, as long as it isn't, oh, it was in a flood, but don't worry, it's okay. You know what I mean? I have no problems with pre-owned things like that. And I know that I had a mechanic check it, and that it's not, I don't know enough about it. Oh my God, I did buy a pig in a poke and it lasted a year.
And the prices, I know we sound old, but I just looked up a flight for our conference in February down to Florida, and it's $200 more this year than it was last year for the same type of flight. And they were, a friend was trying to help my mother and said, oh, Honda's got a sale going on. You got to have 4,000 down, and then it's $350 a month for 7 years. And I'm like, for a Honda? I'm like, who the hell's paying that for a Honda? Jeez, oh man.
Hondas are great cars, but a 7-year auto payment. Good
for
Lord.
$350. And I'm like, but he was like, but you get a 75-inch TV. Give me a $200 payment. I'll go buy my own 75-inch TV.
Exactly. It's, so I have a new favorite commercial because it's so well done. But they have the thing, boy, did the commercial penetrate? I can't tell you the name of the company, but it's the one that will actually drop a car and pick up a car, and they have an app, and you can do it all on the app. And so to me, that's automatically dangerous. This isn't, hey, I went shopping in Amazon and got a book. I went shopping for a $30, $40, $50,000 car. Beep, boop. Oh my God. But the guy, it's got a little slidey thingy so you can compare your dump.
It's easy. I bought one for my wife too.
It's easy, exactly. And it's like he slides it and goes, I feel strong. It's just like the perfect catering to, they might have given you the ability to see just how screwed you are that you're going to have a car payment. What's the total cost of the car? Is that on the screen somewhere? Because wealthy barber, like I said, any number, if you read anything about FIRE, financial independence, retire early, they will give you that same advice. The car is like the worst thing that you can do if you really don't ever think of it as an investment. It's an expense, and keep the total expense and the expense per year down, and be in self-defense is don't get sold something. So I hope that your mom doesn't get fleet. Please, even if it might be like, I don't know, how long can you handle it? Do an hour. Even an hour is better than none. It's
The
Colleen and I
last
have been
3 cars that she got, I
Mhm.
remember talking to her and she's going, we're going out and look for a car today. I'm like, are you looking or getting? No, no, we're just looking today. 2 hours later, she drives in with the new car and says, oh, it was a really great deal. I'm like, a great deal for who? You were the salesman. Whatever.
I will also say this: the way we got our last 2 cars was Costco. They do things where it's $50 over dealer's invoice and not the dealer showroom cost that includes all that transportation, all that crap as well. We got a great deal on a great car, and they really do. They cover, I don't know, 100 different kinds of cars, not 3. So the fact that whatever we pay for Costco each year to be like executive members, we not only get our 2% get discount back, but the money that we saved on our new cars is enough to pay for Costco for the rest of our lives. We save thousands and thousands. You know what I mean? So I don't know if either your mom or somebody in the family is a Costco person, but if you're going to get a new one, I don't think Costco does used, but they make sure that out of Cleveland, it isn't every single Toyota dealer. They have 1 or 2 dealers, maybe one east side, west side, something like that, that those are the ones that have the good ratings, that you're not going to go in there and say, yeah, we're giving you a good Costco deal. But then if you want floor mats, that's another 500 freaking
Right.
dollars.
Oh,
There's all
no.
kinds of
A
ways in which
second key, that'll cost you $250.
like that. Yeah. So a car around Christmas is a big old thing. You know what I mean? When we saw all the ads that have, hey, new car for your graduating high school kid, a big old bow on it. It's wow, maybe you let them work for that a little bit. Here I am sounding all curmudgeonly, but I don't know. It's important to have safety and dependability. Your car is for the utility. That's what I want. I've never cared about does it have the right wood panel or something like that. I cared that it had the rating that said this car is going to last and last, will not break down on me. It's if I'm in a
Right.
collision, I'm in a great
She
frame that's
is
not going to crumple on me.
she is such the ideal consumer for these car dealers because she's had a Mazda, she's liked Mazda, so she's too afraid to get a different type of car. So okay, I'll go look at Mazda and I'll get a Mazda. And I don't think their repairs have been as up to par as they used to be. I don't know what happened. And I told her, I said, oh, you should go look somewhere else. It's just these people have not seemed that trustworthy in recent years,
Yeah,
but
it's these
she's
dealer
so
repairs are
afraid. My mother is Chicken Little with the sky always falling, and
okay.
she's so afraid to go somewhere else. Well, I just don't know those are cars. I don't know their place, and I've been happy here. I'm like, no, you haven't. I'm like, you still don't have a side mirror. They have been promising this for 9 months.
But they want to trust, and so they do. They
Yeah,
want to believe that they're good. I have very little loyalty in all those ways. I don't have a loyalty to an insurance agent or to a
right.
car dealer or anything like that. I have loyalty to quality. The fact that we've now had 2 Priuses run without fail perfectly, and we're getting 50 miles a gallon. That's why I'm looking at a hybrid or an electric, because I like all those features. But if someone outdoes them and Consumer Report says, hey, you want to go with Saab because now they're the best out there, I will relearn where the directional is and how to turn on my lights and stuff in a month, and then I'll still have the best car on the road. It just the peace of mind matters a lot to me. Colleen
Yeah,
and I have talked about so much of we're in okay shape. We're both retired. One of the things is that we made plans and we kept to them. And some of the plan was don't do big impulsive things. Do the research, buy the best thing. You'll not only will you save money in the long run, you'll save emergency money if ever has to happen. And I can't think of anything that's blown up in our face like that. Maybe Angie. Angie is not as dependable for things around the house as it once was. With various different car types, you can even see the little chart of reliability that Consumer Reports together. That kind of funny. Once a place establishes a reputation for reliability, they seem to take that almost as an opportunity to say, well, we can slack off now because we're going to get 10-year echo effect instead of continuing to top the list. Or just that other competitors say, oh, we got to catch up, we got to surpass. So, and this is maybe nobody does this anymore. at least not amongst my direct circle of friends. When I first was looking at buying a car, would have been like early 80s, got out of school and so forth. And are you going to buy American? And so what I'm going to do is buy the best car. And if it turns out that Japan is making those cars, because what we specialize in is fins, not quality motors, I just don't have any loyalty to the company that is screwing me, but saying it's a patriotic act to buy something of less quality. Make a better car. I'll buy your better car. Import it from Detroit. I'll buy an import. And yet, for years, 10, 20 years, we fell further and further behind Datsun, now Nissan, and Honda, and they each had their upgrade, the Acura versus the Infiniti and stuff. So when I got my Infiniti, it was this is the best, highest quality car for like, and still be initially reasonable amounts of money. I didn't want to spend. We talk about this often, don't we? You spend $70,000 on a car when you could have had one for 30. It's like, what's the opportunity value of $40,000 that you could put into other things? And if not even for yourself, that could be a donation to a library. That could get kids some school lunches. Every one of those things that you kind of piss away money, it breaks my heart to see people do that when it really is that I don't know, there's so much psychology in it. We've talked about advertising before. When you get this, and then you'll show you've made it. Now you get the job and the girl and you know what I mean? You are the man on the block. Right. And I've never cared about that. I had an Infiniti, which was kind of like, the reason I got it was because the people that I was dealing with then were like traders from the Chicago Board of Trade and Options Exchange. And I wanted them to not have me come puttering up in a Geo. I wanted them to look like I have arrived. I am reputable. And that's going to be part of how I sell Gambit that I was working on at the time. But it wasn't for me. It kind of, you know what I mean? It was I knew that appearance mattered. I couldn't care less that I have rosewood in the car. You know what I mean? It matters that I have seat warmers because Colleen likes seat warmers. You know what I mean?
And really, people are misled. If you buy a Ford, chances are it was built down in Mexico and imported to the US. The BMWs out there were assembled in North Carolina. So you tell me which one's more American. And Ford isn't even owned.
That really said.
And Ford isn't even really
around for a while, and they really were they were built in Tennessee. They created all these jobs. Yeah.
If Ford isn't really even owned by an American company anymore. They're owned by foreign companies. It was sold. And people go see movies, and 60, 70% of the movies are owned by Chinese companies. Well, they have no problem. It's just the whole buy American is such a falsehood. But that's the raw rallying cry you see on the trucks. Oh, I buy American. Okay, when did you buy American? Because you're driving a foreign car. I don't care what it says.
I know I've seen, there's a big chart of all the interlocking conglomerates that own everything. And so when you see, I don't know, P&G, for instance, right? Procter and Gamble, when you look at them in the store and there's all these different brands and stuff like that, and you figure P&G has two, and then Unilever, and it turns out that they own 80% of the shelf space because they've done all that, inhabit every slot with, I don't know, expensive, middle, cheap, minty versus apple flavor. I don't know. They really have become very cunning, and so have car dealers, and so have,
jumping back real quick before I forget, you mentioned advertising in that. I must say, some of my favorite Christmas commercials over the last couple of years have been the Apple commercial for whatever Apple product.
Yeah. I don't know. Long ago, when the Mac first came out, I think I might have told you this, they had a guy named Guy Kawasaki who we actually had come talk to our Apple, our Mac user group, and his title was evangelist. He wasn't a salesman, and the way he very much explained what he was doing was, salesmen tend to say, okay, what do you want? And I'm going to narrow your choices until I'm the only one remaining. I'm going to scare you. I'm going to give you a free TV, whatever else it might be. Whereas Apple has always been about, look at the stuff you can do. Look, this Mac or this phone or this watch or whatever like that, it expands your life. You make your world bigger and better. And I've always liked that. And not in a false dreams way, not in the, hey, you buy a Macintosh and you get the girl. You know what I mean? I don't think that they've ever done that. Whereas they have the stereotypes of the guys. Who do you want to be in the world? Do you want to be like the, I don't know, button down kind of staid John Hodgman, or do you want to be a little more cool, a little more? And I've never bought one for that reason, but I like the fact that their advertising speaks to aspiration instead of, it's never a lie. It's, and once in a while they actually come out and say, no, we have the fastest computers in the world. But once in a while they just put on lies. If you really want the best out there, and as prices have been, like, maybe you and I have different opinions on this. I'm willing to spend, if a great computer can be had for $800 or $1,000, the $200 difference is not what's going to make me decide. You know what I mean? Something that I use every day for hours a day, the quality of my monitor, the quality of my connectivity, all that kind of stuff. My time is absolutely worth the extra $200. If it was 800 versus 8,000, like when the Lisa long ago first came out, a $5,000 personal computer, when things were $1,000, a harder sell. But I can get this perfect Mac laptop for $1,500 that really is the best rated thing out there. And it's not easy to convince me that the Mac world is so segregated, walled off, if you will. It's absolutely now, because of the internet, because of phones, all the ways in which it interacts with things, it's better and for the right money. And I don't think that I get trapped in it. It's more, wow, another thing that they do better than anybody else. Another thing that I'm happy to pull out my phone and have it just work all the freaking time. When Colleen and I have anything we have to troubleshoot, I'm always amazed that, like, wow, that's not Apple. They usually make it so that, like, 3 levels deep, it's working better than I thought it would. You know what I mean? That as I investigate, because I often sound like a little bit of an Apple, like a commercial, but it really is. I'm ready to give testimonials out the wazoo. Way back when I was regularly using Macs and maybe in a Windows environment, I'd be like, I know that I'll be able to read every file and do all that you can, but I'm going to do it with a 30% productivity boost. That's at least. Right. I know that I'm more efficient than anybody that I saw. Hey, is it virus fighting day? Is it, I had less problems with file compatibility between Mac and Windows than I did between versions of Windows, because I always had to work in the Windows environment. If you did any kind of corporate consulting, but the various different versions of Windows and of Office, and how when it went from doc to docx to doc, all that kind of stuff, regularly I'm the guy that had to explain, you want to make sure you check this box for backwards compatibility, because once you move forward, if you try to go to your home machine and it's still on Windows 7 instead of Windows, you're going to be very unhappy. Yep. You know what I mean? So
I got my buddy that stopped the other night and we were chatting. He's a Linux guy, and he's been a Linux guy since mid 90s, late 90s. Yeah. And man, I'm just like, I've tried Linux several times and I end up spending more time getting things working than actually working. I still don't feel like I could move to Linux and totally use that. And I've been using Windows for so long, and everything I have is in Windows and working. And, people are like, oh, this problem, that problem. I'm like, I don't have problems. Part of that's what you do. So
yeah. Colleen is having a little bit of moving to almost all Macintosh now that she doesn't have the Windows laptop as her main box. It's just, I have to explain things to her. And most of the time it's not quotes, it's just that way. It's more, I think that the reason they made it this way is because, and most of the things seem to have human factors behind it, compatibility behind it, not just we decided to be ornery and do it our own way.
But I mean, I've got a Mac sitting right here that I use for publishing, and I'm now using it. I'm doing a project with Flutter, and Flutter is cross-platform hybrid for iOS, Android, and the web. So I'm working on a project that I can put in all 3 places. That's our goal. But I still have to have
nothing about Flutter. Honestly, I stay up on this kind of stuff all the time. Oh my God, you're ahead. Now I have to go learn about it and catch up.
It's a Google thing, actually, from Google. But you got to still have the Mac to have the right keychain to publish to the Apple Store. So I have to have my Windows with Android set up and everything for the web, and then the Mac for all of that. So I can develop on my Windows, and it has a virtual machine thing that it connects to the Mac. So
yeah, in fact, I developed tons of stuff for Macintosh and Windows both, and the development environment that people don't ever get to see. Another thing that I loved about Apple was that they really had, you can set up things so that it's every single browser, every single version, and the compatibility of being able to test for the top 30 things that you're going to see out there in the world and fix it before it goes out, not just put it out there to break and then people will never use it again. I always loved the rigor and the fact that besides, like, I use Parallels instead of VMware Fusion for running an entire Windows environment. But the Mac had that ability to recreate all those environments right in their development environment, and the level of detail that sometimes they had to deal with for you name it, the difference in foundation libraries and how they, and even long ago it was little endian versus big endian, how they handled memory handling and floating point numbers and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff, the first ones that did, I don't have to worry about memory management, was Apple. Both Apple's development environment and MetroWorks, which I think is kind of gone now. But being able to take care of all the garbage collection and not having being able to guarantee a safe kernel environment and not know that it can be, Apple's got some really smart people working for it. And the fact that they figured all that out for me so that I don't have to do it, I love the leverage of that. You know what I mean? Maybe the latest Windows development environment has all that as well. I'm just not as familiar with it because I have started to do most of my stuff with Swift and all the, and also not to multiple platforms, multiple languages. You know, you really can do C or C plus or all that kind of stuff. And it has gotten better over the course of time. So I just
well, Flutter, obviously you can develop it on either. And the language, the Dart language, which is the major part of it, Flutter is like the framework over top of Dart. That was all Google developed. So it works with both. And obviously it has to do cross-platform development. But the other one I've been working on a lot is Python, because that is the AI stuff. And I've been doing AI stuff for work. And man, let me tell you, my brain has been hurting with that. AWS has so many freaking cool stuff that it does, and I've been working with that.
You have to cobble things together instead
of
being,
and figure out their terminology, and then
I once heard Python one of the things. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, go.
That's way back when I was first working on convergence. I mean, they were really trying to get not just apps, but get things onto the web and being able to do whatever's running behind your websites and stuff like that. And Python was one of the languages you had to learn. You know, what was the duct tape of the internet, that if you didn't know each of the languages on other platforms, you could write middleware kind of stuff that would take care of your data, take care of your user interface, that kind of thing. So I know everything I've learned about Python was unwillingly, but I see how handy it has been. You know what I mean?
The more I've been using Python, the more I've used Python, the more I've enjoyed it. I like the language, but now that I'm learning Dart with Flutter, I'm like, wow, Dart is a very elegant language. It makes a lot of sense. And so that's pretty cool.
All right. I miss it. Yep. That's one of those things that maybe that's another thing I'll pick up in the new year is I just want to develop something. I miss that cool thing of, hey, look what I wrote, and it works. I haven't been active in that way anywhere near what I once was, honestly, since coming to Cleveland. You know what I mean? When I was doing
it's Cleveland's fault.
It just was. I did the big mainframe and database insurance company environment, and it made me fall behind. And so the act of starting over again or catching up, it was a lot of work for a hobby, and that's kind of why I haven't done it. Right. But I have lots of time now and lots of, I like how my mind is when it works on that. My mind has a mind that solves those things well. I'm aware that I have this gift, and my not using it is kind of criminal. You know what I mean? I really should be. I was never the best coder that I knew, but I was really good at coming into environments that had been created before and being able to quickly understand what they were doing and quickly see what the problems were. And is this worth fixing, or is this worth, you really should rewrite it? This isn't refactoring. It was written in a different time, and we're in event-oriented instead of procedural now.
Right.
So you might want to take this as an opportunity, keep this thing shuddering along as a zombie for the next 3 months, and give yourself a spiffy new version, that kind of thing. So anyway.
All right, hey, I got to get running. So
have a great holiday.
You too.
I'm sure we'll compare who got the cool stuff when we talk again. And Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
So glad that we're doing this. I love our conversation. I look forward to this. We have 170 plus in the can.
Yes. Yeah. That's crazy.
That's cool.
That's way more than a lot of people. Let me tell you.
It really is. So whatever our stubbornness or our affability or whatever we got going for us, so far so good.
So real quick, I heard they are putting Godzilla -1 black and white version out in Japan. So we're really hoping that comes to the States.
That's because it'll really look like the first Raymond Burry type thing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So very good.
All right.
Looking for it. Okay.
Merry Christmas, sir.
Very good. If we get all snowed in, I'm fine. I got a lot of TV I got to watch.
Yes. Yeah, me too. Me too.
A lot of books I got to read.
Yeah.
Right, take care, Stephen.
Later.
Bye-bye.